Hello and welcome to a look at Blade for the Amiga, a game that was released by Live Mediasoft. Now, as you may have gathered from the introduction, an evil baddie something was defeated by a heroic hero of heroic proportions and trapped in a sword. The sword, of course, was a hidden buried thing, and was forgotten about for millennia and all that good stuff and whatever it was. And then the trapped soul broke free because of an incident happening. And of course, that means the baddie is back. So you would assume that your job is to go out and find the baddie and be absolutely sure that there's no coming back from the second reckoning, if you want to be dramatic. But that is not entirely the case. As you start the game, you have various different options you can set. You can set the density of the monster spawning in the dungeon, and you can set the difficulty level, either trainee or heroic, and then you hit the start icon thing and get to select some characters. Out of the choices you have available, you can select 4 of them. And of course, because this is an old school game, if you take one thing, you can't have the other. So trying to get a party that is balanced and capable of handling various different situations is a definite must. As a side note, I really hate respeccing in games. Today I feel like a warrior. I want to be a mage tomorrow. Okay. No, actually, I want to be a ranger. It's yeah, I'm an old school pen and paper role player. I hate respeccing. That was the side note, by the way. Regardless, the different characters you have available have different strengths and weaknesses, as you could likely imagine, and all the characters have a bunch of different stats. They have action points or time units, which is directly related to the amount of movement they can do and various different actions. Then they have statistics like muscle, which is carry weight, also of course related to melee damage. Combat ability, which is the overall expected performance from a character when they are engaged in combat. And then they have mind and magic and all that good stuff, which are connected to the relevant different abilities. The different characters you have available, you have the warrior, which is a very good fighter, but he's not particularly clever. So magic is a mystery to him, and he doesn't have a special skill. But the fact that he's quite a capable fighter is good enough to justify his presence. The dwarf is an all-round decent fighter. Not as good as a warrior, but not as bad as some of the other classes, or characters, I should say. But he has the very, very important special skill of disabling traps, which can be incredibly useful in certain situations. Then you have the cleric, which is a caster, obviously, and you can likely imagine that the cleric's spells will be healing orientated or buffing orientated. But the advantage of the cleric is the fact that the character can use any weapon type. The elf, which is a bit of a caster, a bit of a melee, but not particularly good at either, is a compromise character if you don't want to bring a full caster, but you still want to have some spell ability. Obviously, because it is a hybrid thing, it will never be as good as a pure caster or as a pure melee character. The thief can unlock doors, and depending on what role-playing scenario you are playing, the rogues are either incredibly weak or incredibly not weak, and the rogues in this particular, or thieves, I should say, this particular title are not particularly bad in combat. Then you have the wizard, which is a caster dude who's incredibly useless in melee and potentially incredibly powerful once he gains some spells. And of course, out of those misfits, you have to, as I said, choose 4 of them. Once that is done, you will be loading into the village, which is the location of the entrance to the dungeon. But of course, being a village, it has various different amenities that you can make use of, such as a bank to store your money, and a vendor of weapons and armor, which is something you might want to go and look into, because entering a dungeon with your bare hands as the only weapon doesn't sound like a particularly clever idea. You also have a monk in a temple who can empower your characters for an obscene amount of money. It will also heal characters and give enlightenment, so to speak, which is knowledge of scrolls and potions. But I will get further into that once we talk about the dungeon exploration kind of thing. You can also buy hints, which is something that may or may not be useful. But besides the different vendors, you have the village you can explore. And you will find that there are quite a few minor secrets, but also money lying around. Not as much as you would hope for, unfortunately, because something you will find very, very early on is that the good weapons and the good armor is rather pricey. But that should also tell you that the main drive of this game is overall finding the baddie and put him down. But it is to enter the dungeon, explore, beat up some monsters, loot them, find various items, go back to town, sell, buy better stuff, rinse and repeat, and progress further into the dungeon. Entering the dungeon, you will get a view of it based on how far the characters can see, because the different characters have a certain view range. And then you move about, and you will be told if a monster has been spotted, which is always useful. And then you can move towards it and left click on it in order to smack it with your weapon and hopefully take it down before it takes you down. You can attack from front and the side, but you can also attack from angles, which means that it is very, very easy to have 3 characters ganging up on a single monster, which is perhaps something that sounds a touch unfair, but it is a very, very useful mechanic to have. Which, of course, also means that by and large you want to try and keep your party together as a unit. And most dungeon corridors are 2 squares wide, which means, of course, that the characters will have to move in a sort of formation kind of thing to stick together. The difference in difficulty between novice and heroic is actually quite harsh. Prior to this particular footage, I had played a game on heroic difficulty level, and I had a dead party to show for it. So this is actually the second game I played. As you go about in the dungeon, not only will you bump into monsters, but you also bump into chests and altars and all kinds of similar things. And the chests will usually give you some sort of item, but the altars and more advanced variations of the same thing have two good outcomes and two negative outcomes. So clicking on one of those altars is a bit of a gamble. A good old coin toss, which is very, very reminiscent of another game where clicking on certain shrines, if you didn't know what the shrine would do, could absolutely cripple your character. Yeah, he's looking at you, Diablo. You will also find spell books, and that is the only way for casters to get spells, because they will not start with any spells. Because, I mean, that's too easy, isn't it? And once you stand on an item of whatever kind, you left click on your character in order to pick up whatever item they are standing on. Gold is picked up automatically, so that is a nice little touch. But the casters, they need to learn all the spells of a certain level before they can acquire spells of a higher level. So for level 1 spells, there are 4 of them, and the casters, if you have multiple of them, will need to learn all 4 before level 2 spells even becomes available. Once you have done as much exploration as you feel safe to do, which is usually dictated by how much health your characters have lost, it is time to head back to the entrance and go back to town. Heal up, sell stuff, buy new stuff, and return to the dungeon and explore further, and so on and so on. Let's cover some technical stuff. From a graphical point of view, I actually find the somewhat rustic medieval look of this game quite enjoyable. I feel it's very, very atmospheric, and it sets a good tone. I don't know whether I would define the graphics as being great or excellent or good, or I will define it as being likable, if that is a category of grading. It is now, in case you're wondering. It suits the game incredibly well, and you get a feeling of being in this medieval dungeon and dragon-esque inspired sort of thing. And yeah, I'm perfectly happy with the graphics themselves. Some things are a bit sparse, but they do what they need to do, nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing special, nothing bad. It works, and it works perfectly fine. There's not an awful lot of music, but what the music is again perfectly decent. Maybe not spectacular, but definitely not bad either. The speed just is available is a bit rough, but it adds to the experience. It's nice to be told that a monster has been spotted and things like that. So yeah, not exactly stellar quality, but yeah, I will happily take it. The game is exclusively mouse controlled, which may be a bit, I don't know, lacking. It would be nice having a keyboard shortcut for the various different abilities and ending turn and next character and that kind of stuff, but that is not the case. It is entirely mouse controlled, and while it works perfectly fine, personally I would have liked to have some keyboard shortcuts available. As you can likely gather by now, this is an interesting combination of various different genres, but the game is entirely turn-based at all times. When you're in the dungeon, it's turn-based. You have your action points, and you can move a certain amount, and if you get into combat, as soon as you attack, you spend all your action points. So any movement you want to do prior to attacking has to be done prior to attacking, because you can't move after attacking. It's perfectly fine in the dungeon, because, I mean, it gives you some sort of tactical feel. But the fact that the game is turn-based everywhere is likely the biggest downside to this particular title. Once you have done as much exploring as you want to do of the dungeon and you need to go back to town and recover, it becomes a question of spending all your movement points, ending your turn. Spending all your movement points, ending your turn. Spending all your movement points. Now you're at the vendor. Now you can sell stuff. Now you can buy stuff. End the turn. Spend all your movement points. End the turn. Spend all your. Now you're getting close to the healer. Now you can spend time healing. End the turn. And now you can re-enter the dungeon. You can see the issue. I really don't want to criticize this game for it, but the thing is, and this is a sad fact, it feels incredibly cumbersome even. And a lot of players are going to be put off because of that fact. Which is actually quite a shame, because if you can force yourself to endure the incredibly heavy feel that the constant turn-based system gives, there's actually an awful lot of good game to be had out of this. I do an awful lot of cooking, so I always make cooking references, and this is a bit like a good meal, where you know if it had a touch of salt and a whack of pepper, it would go from good to great, perhaps even flirting with exceptional. Having the vendors being a menu instead of having to walk to them or crawl to them, more likely. Having some sort of real-time movement outside of the dungeon. Either of those two would have made this game significantly more enjoyable and playable for more people. All in all, though, especially considering the fact that this is a one-man effort, it is actually not a bad game at all. Thanks for watching, take care, see you next time. Bye bye for now.